Hello, and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor, that's Albert Breer. And Albert, got a little bit of a surprise announcement for you. This is going to be my last MMQB podcast, but I want to finish out the season while also doing the other one that I just got hired to do. Is that okay with you, Commissioner?
All right. So this is your last one, and you're done. Okay.
I'm just laying.
Is my sweatshirt look okay here? Does it look all right? Do I look all right?
I'm just laying Kiffin around. I'm just kidding. That was like
that was a fun Sunday. It was kind of a blah Sunday of NFL action. So I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little distracted by like that garment like thing that they put out in the street. You guys see that? Like,
so they threw, what you're talking about is that Ole Miss basically like threw out a garment rack.
A garment rack. I was looking for the right term for that.
Kiffin's clothes on it when he decided to go to LSU. Yeah.
I mean, and like the people waiting at the airport, and like I don't know if you saw like the Charlie Weiss Jr. video, but it was like they were like trying to identify who it was getting out of the Escalade, and they were like, it was like you could hear the whispering, like as everybody was shooting it with their phones, like outside the airport. It's like, is that Charlie? Is that Charlie? Is that Charlie? And then all of a sudden, Charlie, you suck. It was. I mean, I've never seen like it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but
so Marty Smith from ESPN got the interview with Lane. Like I think had to like drive up a fire road on like it looked like one of those airport access roads, didn't it? Yeah, it was it would have to have been like an all-terrain vehicle to get to Lane Kiffin before he got on the airplane. And like,
I don't blame him, man, though. Like, if you're in that situation, I've been in that situation where you're like the stakeout guy, and like you become very territorial about the story when you're covering it that way, because it's your story at that point. You don't want to get beat on anything. So, like, I'm all for Marty Smith. If he had to get into an ATV and like drive
fun.
over,
sounds fun.
And drive over levees to get there or whatever, I would not blame him for 1 second. Good on Marty for getting the interview before Lane got on the plane. That's a very satisfying thing, knowing at the end of covering a story like that you're the one who got him.
That was like someone told me this story the other day. Remember when the whole Barry Bonds thing happened and all the reporters were in the courtroom, and some reporter on his way to the bathroom figured out that there was a vent that if you stood on top of a table or something and you put your ear to the vent, went straight into the grand jury room. And he was just sitting there, just like filling up his notebook. And everyone's like, how the hell is this guy getting all this shit? You know? But you're right. Like when you're in that environment and it's sort of like this hamster cage.
It's hyper competitive.
It's hyper. Yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of memories watching Marty Smith of being on street corners in New York and Minnesota and DC covering the lockout and what that was like, and being the guy who, when like a lot of other NFL reporters were sort of on like an unofficial vacation because the league was locked out, I was very much in that, and it was me and Rich Eisen day to day, Michigan alum, by the way, and yeah, like day to day, like Rich was in the studio and I was on the street, and we were covering that thing, and it's 100% the truth. Like when you are in that situation, you do not want to let anyone else have a piece of that's your story. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And it's gutting when somebody else gets something that you don't have because you are there. So 100%, like, if you're a Marty Smith in that situation, you're going to be hyper competitive about it. And damn straight, you're going to figure out like how you get to Lane Kiffin and how you get a microphone in his face before he boards in that plane to get to Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Just such
the story is just ridiculous all the way around. I mean, have you heard the thing about his dog now?
No.
So his dog's name is Juice, right? So his dog's name is Juice Kiffin. So there was an LSU account, I think this was yesterday, that tweeted like something like, kind of celebrating about landing Lane. And it was something along the lines of like, even better, we get Juice Kiffin's coming as part of the deal. And then like a couple Ole Miss accounts responded like, sorry, dude, that dog has never lived with Lane. He lives with his handler. And I guess they're alleging that the dog Juice was basically just part of what Lane's image makeover and was never actually his dog.
Wow.
The dog has like a Twitter account and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's a lot more salacious things floating around on the internet too. Screenshots of DMs and stuff like that from college. Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff that if you want to find it, you can find it. I promise you.
There's going to be a point in the show where I just sort of drift, and you're just going to know that I'm reading Lane Kiffin DMs.
Yeah,
imagine that a college football coach, Albert, is not the best guy in the world. Imagine that. Are you kidding me? Wow.
I mean, I just had this thought yesterday though, and I tweeted it, and you might have seen it, but I said, on one hand, college football really needs to get its shit together.
No.
On the other hand, I never want it to change. Like, this is unbelievable, you know? Like, I mean, just the drama and the flight away. Did you see there was actually yesterday, there was like, I think it was audio from the air traffic control tower in Mississippi of like the plane landing. Somebody somehow got a hold of the audio of the LSU plane landing, and like the pilot said, "Go Tigers," and then the air traffic control tower said, "Hotty toddy."
Oh my God. I will say this.
The absurdity of it, it's unbelievable. It really is.
I will say this. Ole Miss Ole Miss is like you kind of got a good coach at the right time, and he built your program up, and you can't, LSU just can't compete with those resources and everything like that. And so it's kind of like
you compete.
Yeah, it's just sort of like the anger's sort of strange and misplaced.
You know what though?
You know?
I can empathize with them because that is gutting. You know what I mean? Like to some degree, look, I'm obviously very passionate about my alma mater's football team, and it's the one thing that I really root for and I live and die with, and it's the one thing that, you know, in sports now can put me in a bad mood, you know, for days after if things don't go my way, and like, so I get it. Like, that's got to be so gutting that this guy gets you to 11-1. You're having the best season in the history of your program, or at least since like Archie Manning was there, right? Like 50 years ago. You're having the best year you've ever had, all that different stuff. And before you can get into the playoff, another school from your conference that's got 7 fewer wins than you swoops in and steals your coach. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like the most humbling thing that can possibly happen. It sucks. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks. And so and the calendar's so messed up too. It's just, this is all Mark Emmert's fault. Anybody doesn't know that name can look it up. It's the NCAA president who had a chance to get in front of all of this and instead decided to keep cashing checks because it was the easy thing to do. And then when the NIL legislation passed, where was it, 4 years ago, basically walked out of a house that was catching fire, you know, and it was obvious that we were eventually going to come to this sort of conclusion. Like, even like 20, 25 years ago, like, you knew the way college football was set up could not work going forward. And the fact that nobody thought to get ahead of it, or nobody had the balls to get ahead of it, I think is why we're here. Why we are where we are, and that doesn't excuse Lane Kiffin's actions, but I think it does explain them.
We got a big day. I can't spend all day in Lane Kiffin's DMs here, even though I wish I could. It sounds like a magical place. I'm sure he was just giving those young college girls some life advice at the end of the day. But because everybody needs a mentor. But so starting on Thanksgiving and then through Black Friday and then through the weekend, Albert.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving gave us by far the best slate of games. And then I would say it was kind of a sliding scale through Sunday, but there were kind of some moments of consequence, and I want to view this show as a little bit more of a recap, less like a game by game recap and more of like a reset, because at this point we are looking at the remainder of the season. There's a couple weeks left, but I think a lot can change. I think that the AFC South could probably change hands a couple times. We still got to figure out what the hell the Chiefs are going to do to get into the playoffs. I still think that they're going to somehow back their way into the playoffs, but I want to start with Pittsburgh and Buffalo because I do think that there's some kind of shockwave potential ramifications here, okay? The Bills blew out the Steelers on Sunday, and it was one of those games that it very typical of Pittsburgh at this point. Started out with a halftime lead. 9 out of 12 games this year, Albert, the Steelers have led at halftime, but they're 6-6 at this point, and so I think they're running out of gas. I don't think they're adjusting well at halftime. I think that's obvious for anyone to see. But what was surprising to me is twofold. You had the fan base booing Renegade, which has never happened before, according to some of the Steelers reporters that were there. You had a Fire Tomlin chant, and all around the same time that this is happening, you give up a run to James Cook that sets the I'm calling it Heinz Field stadium record for rushing yards allowed in that stadium. And so
I'm sorry. The Lane Kiffin Marty Smith interview just came up on TV.
It's amazing, isn't it?
There's a state police cruiser over Marty's behind, right behind Marty's right shoulder.
It doesn't matter. You got to get it, man.
Did he get a police escort? It gets right at the gate of a barbed wire fence. Go ahead, keep going. Sorry,
but all of that stuff taken together, I would say forms if you decide to make a coaching change, Albert, it's never because of one thing. However, there is usually one moment that you serve on the platter and then everything else is kind of underneath it. Since this team hasn't made it to the divisional round of the playoffs since 2018. While Thomas
playoff win was 16, right?
I think the last playoff win was 16. The last 5 years in particular, I think only 1 year where they were even close to a top 10 team in terms of explosive plays on offense. Defense, they're right around 15 always, right? Right around 15. That's not, you can't go out and say the standard is the standard when the standard is you finish in the middle of the pack, right? Every year.
Right.
But you continually play yourself out of competition for quarterbacks, for other guys that can actually help you build this roster. Now, I don't know if this is Tomlin's insistence on running things this way, Albert, or what the deal is here, but
I think it's so I have a theory on it.
But do you think it's time to have a conversation about it? About Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh?
I think there's going to be a natural breaking point, which comes with the divorce from the current core of players, which is going to happen soon because of age. There's just that's not a shot at anybody. That's just all you have to do is look at the birth dates of these guys. You know what I mean? And where, and how that team's built. And TJ Watt goes out late in that game, and that seems to happen a lot lately, right? Your best players are in their 30s, Watt and Ramsey and Rodgers and DK Metcalf, I think, is an older 28-year-old. I've said that a few times. Right. Darius Slay is a guy that you've relied on at corner. And so is it any coincidence that that's the sort of team you have that wheezes down the stretch of these games? Probably not, right? Especially this deep into the year. And so I applauded them for going and acquiring Rodgers. And the reason why is because they had this group of players and they were sort of stuck in the middle where they didn't have an answer at quarterback. And it was okay, it's either we make one last run at it and go and get a big time quarterback and see where that leaves us, or it's time to rebuild. And so I think taking the swing with Rodgers, and look, they inquired on Stafford too when Stafford's name was out there.
Right.
To me, I think is an acknowledgement of where you are, which is we want to give these guys one more shot. And that's great. And they gave it a shot, and it doesn't look like it's going to work out. And it's not over yet. We'll see. But when you decide to move on from that group, and when you start deconstructing that group, and when you start to look at how many players in this roster are going to be around a few years from now, how many guys are you really coming up with, right? I look at it I think they've got a good young offensive line. right? Like I think you look at the offensive linemen, your Troy Fatanu's, your Zach, your Zach Frazier's. Like I think they've got some pieces there. Freiermuth is in the prime of his career, so he'll be around a while. Joey Porter is a good young player, but there aren't a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like just a lot of guys you look at and say, yeah, that guy's going to be here in 3 years.
Right.
And so like that means there's a pretty significant rebuild coming. And that I think becomes the natural point where everybody asks the question, do we want to move forward with this? I think the answer is probably no, right? Like I hate to say that because I don't think it's like that Mike can't coach anymore. I just think it's similar to Andy Reid and Philly at the end.
Exactly.
And people forget how Andy was looked at the end. People thought the game had passed Andy by, which sounds absurd now. You know what I mean? Like in 11 and 12, he was kind of seen as a dinosaur.
Right.
You know, the 11 Dream Team season doesn't work, and then the whole thing comes undone in 2012. And I think like obviously both sides wound up coming out of that divorce about as clean as you could possibly come out.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, both won Super Bowls. Hell, multiple Super Bowls.
So I don't know, man. Like I just look at this as like when you do decide that you're going to do the reset, when you do decide that it's time, like that's when it becomes like that's when I think you have to ask, is Mike Tomlin the person we want to lead in this rebuild? Mike Tomlin's got to ask himself, do I want to be a part of a rebuild that might take a few years where there is no certainty because we don't have any sort of clarity at the quarterback position once Aaron Rodgers is gone, you know? I don't know. I mean, like, it just feels like this is like an old team that's going to need to be deconstructed in a very significant way.
So two things. I wonder if you give that core of Steelers players, and, I don't know if Cam Hayward would stick around, but, TJ Watt and Highsmith, and Highsmith's only 28, I think. But, that core of players, would you give them almost that Matt LaFleur opportunity where, remember, Matt LaFleur took over for Mike McCarthy and it was like David Bakhtiari and Clay Matthews. And, it was, I think they shipped Clay Matthews to the Rams that year. I don't know if Clay actually ever played, but it was that team. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was a lot of older guys, Balaga and all those guys that were with Rodgers and kind of entrenched with McCarthy. And they gave that one quick look under LaFleur. And I ask you that to say this. Mike Tomlin's contract runs through the 2027 season, okay? And you have a lot of teams that have already fired their coaches and are in complete and total disarray. If you're the Steelers, you could get something back from Tomlin right now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I don't know why more teams don't go down this road, to be honest with you.
And look at this. So there was 8 coaching trades since 1997. I think 6 of those coaches went to a Super Bowl. 5 or 6, right? Because there was Gruden, Mike Holmgren took the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Gruden took the Bucks to the Super Bowl. Bill Belichick took the Patriots to the Super Bowl. You have...
Would the Giants make sense?
Like, I don't know. Right?
I mean, I don't know. That one's interesting for me because they have a lot of big personalities in their young core, right? I don't think they're that far off. They've got a lot of big personalities in their young core. What's Mike Tomlin's specialty is handling guys like that. So you have guys like Malik Neighbors and Abdul Carter who you're going to be trying to maximize. You do have a young quarterback in place. I don't know what Mike Tomlin personally thinks about Jackson Dart, but let's say he really likes him. Like then you've got a guy now who's going to be on his rookie contract for the next few years. It'll allow you to build a little bit more aggressively. You got a franchise left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You got a franchise defensive lineman in Dexter Lawrence. Like I've said the last few years, I don't think the Giants are far off. I still believe that. There's obviously a long-standing relationship between the Rooney family and the Mara family. So that's something that I would assume could get worked out. You still have questions with Tomlin, primarily like who's going to coach the offense, who's going to develop the quarterback. But it doesn't seem like the craziest idea in the world. And if you're talking about somebody who could handle New York, and who has like that Parcells type presence, that's Tomlin, right?
Yeah. I mean, and if you like Mike Kafka, just keep him, and say, hey, you're going to stay as the offensive coordinator. Like, you can go out and interview for other jobs, but you can stay here and you can coach Jackson Dart if he does a good job with Jackson Dart, because we're taping this at 9:30 on Monday morning, December 1st. Jackson Dart's going to be back in the lineup tonight against the Patriots. If he has a good 5-game run with Jackson Dart, why not keep Kafka as your head coach or as your OC?
We just fixed the Giants.
What's that? I think we did. Nice. Not bad. I mean,
but I do think like there's a benefit to this though. Like I look at like Andy Reid as like kind of the model for it. You know what I mean? Like, where Andy was obviously wildly successful for all those years in Philly. And I think like getting fired gave him the chance to kind of reevaluate some things. And I think like the reality is he was really evaluating them for a year, because if you were around that situation, I was around it a lot in 2012. Like, he was dead man walking the whole year. It was almost sad watching it happen. Like, like the very aggressive Philly media who all had relationships with him. It was almost like, all right, we got to go in and ask him these really tough questions again. Like, it was almost like everybody was resigned to what the conclusion of the story was going to be. Everyone knew. So Andy, I think, had a chance to kind of evaluate some things. And if you look, like, he gets to Kansas City, he ceded personnel control, which he had full control when he was in Philly. He brought in John Dorsey to run personnel, decided he just wanted to coach. And then not only like did he, wind up bringing in a defensive coordinator from the Rex Ryan tree in Sutton, which that worked out for a little while. He also evaluated what he was doing on offense and in hiring the Nevada coach. God, what was his name?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I was going to say Joe Alt because it sounds like that, but obviously it's not Joe Alt.
It's Chris Alt, isn't it?
Chris Alt. Yeah, Chris Alt. I think that was it. Yeah. Who was Colin Kaepernick's coach at Nevada.
Chris Alt. Yep.
To start to incorporate some spread principles, which eventually wound up leading him to Patrick Mahomes. So, like, I think, like this could be that point for Tomlin where, the Steelers could be better for walking away now, and Tomlin himself could be better for walking away now too.
Just a thought, right? I mean, I think that
I don't think it's crazy. I don't think he'll get fired. To be clear, like,
no, I don't either.
I don't think this will ever be a firing. Like this, like, to me, like, this is going to be like this is going to be done. This is going to be done. Like, that's the term "the right way" is very cliche, but I do feel like this is going to be done the right way.
And it never looks the right way either. And so, right. I mean, to be clear, I mean, I covered the end of the Tom Coughlin era, right? And so he literally got up there, gave his closing remarks, and then did a robot turn right past the owner and just breezed past him and didn't shake his hand and walked right into his office. He was pissed. And these guys
wasn't he still like using the facility?
He was going in and pumping iron at the gym. Yeah. So it's complicated, right?
Poor Ben McAdoo, what that must have felt like to watch. If anybody's been to the Giants facility, the gym is like in this like glass encased, right?
Oh yeah.
And like poor Ben McAdoo, can you imagine like walking by every morning and there's the guy you replaced on the elliptical?
Seen this old guy just beating you into the facility and just pounding. Tom was like 76 and he was running like wind sprints in the indoor practice facilities. Crazy. But that's what these guys are. And so I think that Mike Tomlin in his mind is like, I've given everything to this place. I've done everything I can. But sometimes it's just like Andy Reid. You got to just remove him and put him in a different spot. And I would guess for Mike Tomlin, there's an attractiveness to that too. Hey, I get like probably a year or two with Dexter Lawrence. I get 3 years with Abdul Carter. I get a couple of years with Jackson Dart. And then, all right, you're going to throw in the OC and give me a guy who can already call it. That's fantastic. I like that. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. Guys, I have to tell you about Cash App. Scammers know the holidays are busy for everyone, which can make us all targets for scams. That's why Cash App builds in protection to help keep your money safe while you're checking off your shopping list. If you're about to send money to someone for a deal that's too good to be true and Cash App flags it as a potential scam, they'll warn you before you send the money. Cash App also gives you an extra layer of protection with features like Security Lock. You can require a PIN, a Face ID, a fingerprint, all of it to unlock your account and move money. So even if someone gets a hold of your unlocked phone at a holiday party, your money is right where you left it. Gift yourself some peace of mind this holiday season and download Cash App. For a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, just download the Cash App, use our exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Did this game change what you think of Buffalo at all?
No, because to me, and that's the other part of this. I'm curious what your thought is on this. I've dug deep on the Joe Brady offense multiple times and what his kind of core philosophy is. You know, he's a make you defend every blade of grass guy. And that's why they went out and set up the personnel the way that they did. That's why they go and they line this thing up the way that they do. But to me, there just seems, and I don't know if this is a Josh Allen thing, which it could be, but there just doesn't seem to be a harmony between the run game and the pass game. Like you watch the Bears, or you watch the 49ers, or you watch the Rams, and everything flows together. And it's like, it's very
married,
cohesive. Yeah. With Buffalo, it's like, I mean, all the Steelers players said it after the game yesterday, Albert, right? Buffalo ran 2 running plays for most of the game. 2. And they just ran them over and over again. And they just kept working. And the Steelers didn't adjust to them. And even Romo was saying it on the broadcast. Like they're only running 2 running plays. Like, does anyone see this? But so they kind of they hammer some of these teams, but then they revert right back to, you know, how they looked against Miami or how they looked against, some of their more inferior opponents on their schedule where they just look kind of lost. And so I don't know. I mean, there needs to be, you can't harmonize your run and passing game in December. That doesn't work. You can't just bring in somebody from the Shanahan. The Eagles tried that. I think in October, they brought in a bunch of Shanahan guys toward the end of the Doug Peterson era. And we're like, let's try to fix this real fast. That's a disaster. You can't do that.
You have to do it in camp. Yeah. It's like really hard to do that on the fly.
And so you're hoping that Josh Allen becomes or maintains this superhuman glow all through the playoffs. Now, the AFC playoff picture, I think, is crappy enough. Both playoff pictures, I think, are crappy enough that Josh Allen can just hammer people and continue to get going and make it through the playoffs. But I don't have any more confidence. I don't know. What say you?
I mean, look, like yesterday wasn't a superhuman effort from him. He was good,
right.
But like, it's not like he had to. I just feel like a lot of things have to go right for Buffalo now. Like, to me, it's like, so the run game's got to sustain. The lights got to stay on for Keon Coleman. Like, it's weird because he hasn't played that much, but I do feel like they need more out of their skill group. And so Keon Coleman, to me, is sort of like a wild card that could really help them if that winds up.
Yeah.
If, again, the light turns on for him. He had a big play yesterday.
Yeah.
They need to get Kincaid healthy. Like, I think they've really missed Kincaid. And then defensively, I don't know. I mean, like, defensively, they were good. Defensively, to me, like, defense wasn't the problem against Houston. Defense wasn't a problem yesterday. Yes, the run defense has been an issue over the course of the year, but I feel like some of their young guys, like Walker in the middle of the D line, like, I just feel like there are certain things, Cole Bishop in the secondary, certain things are coming along there where I think the defense is going to be good enough. It's just, I can say all these things, right? And it still feels like they're going to need Josh Allen to be Superman to win a championship, which may not be the best place to be.
Right.
Although again,
I
like
don't see it.
Maybe it's just like what's around them is so crappy right now, or so average right now. It's hard to say, like that necessarily. Like that is going to take any sort of superhuman effort. I think the AFC is deep, but there's no like juggernaut there.
Yeah, and one last point on Buffalo, and then we'll get rolling here. Is I've heard it a couple times when you call around about the head coaching space this year. It's like Joe Brady could be a head coach of an NFL team next year, or he could also not be the offensive coordinator of the Bills next year. That's the floor and the ceiling for this. And
Yeah.
and there are games like yesterday where Albert, it all depends on what kind of glasses you put on. You could look at that game and say, "Oh my God, Joe Brady set the record at Heinz Field for rushing without his 2 tackles, both of them."
Yeah.
Right? That's incredible. But you can also look at it and say, this offense looks completely like a game of perfection when the board just pops and all the pieces fly everywhere, And so
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with this, but I don't know. That's just part of a very very interesting weekend in the NFL. So let's get rolling here. What are your thoughts on? So Thanksgiving, we had the Packers Lions, we had the Chiefs Cowboys, and the Bengals and Ravens. The Packers beat the Lions 31-24. Cowboys beat the Chiefs 31-28.
Yeah.
Bengals beat the Ravens 32-14. You have a great piece kind of detailing the comeback of Joe Burrow. Boy, did he look a lot better than I thought he would.
Yep.
I think it's probably still a little too late for the Bengals, but nobody.
I mean, I don't even know though anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's the thing is like they have another game against the Ravens. So if they win that, then the Ravens have 7 losses, right? Now they're going to have to beat Buffalo, and that's a tall order.
I think they could beat Buffalo at this point, right?
But if they win out, right, like they're 9-8, and so I think the tiebreaker would be common record, right? Like if it's a 3-way tie with the Ravens and the Steelers, it'd be common record. And in that scenario, the Bengals would be 3-1. So they would win the tiebreaker, right?
Jeepers.
So like now I don't know if they would win like a head-to-head tiebreaker with the Steelers, but there would be a sweep over the Ravens at that point. I mean, you're looking at, then you'll go looking for one more loss from the Ravens, right? Well, the Ravens still have the Steelers twice, the Packers, and the Patriots. Okay. So you could definitely conjure a scenario where they lose the Bengals and there's one more loss. And then the Steelers would need to lose 2 more games. They have the Ravens twice. So let's say they split. And then you have the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Browns. So that maybe seems a little less likely, but the Dolphins could beat the Steelers. The Lions could beat the Steelers, So it doesn't seem impossible that the Bengals win the division, as crazy as that might sound.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know.
Their defense has played better the last couple of weeks.
Their defense has played better. What was it like?
Weird. I don't know where this came from because they still don't have Shamar Stewart. They still don't have Trey Hendrickson.
But it's Miles Murphy. Like that's the guy, and he was in Lamar's face that whole game.
Yeah, they still don't have Taylor Britt. Like it's crazy, but like maybe Al Golden's found something. But like they look to me like a team like where remember that blowout of the Ravens happened, in Baltimore, and it was also without T. Higgins out there. So as good as Burrow looked by the end of that game, it wasn't perfect at the beginning, but by the end of that game, look, I think people forget how good he is because he's not physically overwhelming like Mahomes or Allen or Lamar. Like he's not like those guys. But he is just he's such an assassin out there. And when he's on that throw to Josevich was freaking ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like if you pause it and you look like at the point at which he made that throw and where Josevich was like in relation to the coverage and what Joe was reading out when he made that throw, I think it was like a dagger concept. Like he's still capable of being the best quarterback in football. And he's got 2 receivers that are legitimate number ones. And if the defense can be halfway decent, they're very dangerous if they get in.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the ultimate like twist at the end of this NFL season. It's just like, surprise.
Bengals win the AFC.
Bengals win the AFC. I hope so. And I said it a couple minutes ago, but I just want to elaborate on it. I was surprised at how just the governor's off on Joe Burrow. It's not like this was like a let's ease him back in kind of game plan. And I think they'll get better in the red zone. I think a lot of their red zone failures were just chalked up to timing and not having T. Higgins out on the field. But this was not a Jamar Chase game. I mean, this was Joe Burrow throwing dots to, both to his tight ends, to Yosavash, to all these other guys. And so I thought that this was
is a quarterback. This is a quarterback who is very capable of being the best player in football.
Yeah. And wants to. And it's not like, because there are other people that you say that about.
Yeah.
And for some reason the potential is not fulfilled. I think that Burrow's different, and that the only thing that's been setting him back are injuries. And sometimes you just have disproportionately bad luck. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
someone pointed this out to me. The only 3 full seasons he's played, right? 2 of them ended in the AFC Championship game, or 2 of them he got to the AFC Championship game. 1 he got to the Super Bowl. And then the other one was last year when he led the NFL in almost every passing category, had a historically bad defense, and still almost made the playoffs. So those are the 3 years that he's had where he's been out there in full. And if he can rescue this season for them, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, it's just, again, I think if you put him in a playoff setting, there's nobody he hasn't beaten. You know what I mean? He's beaten. He's beaten Baltimore. He's won an Arrowhead in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed. He went in there and knocked them off on his way to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? He is legitimately there's no one there where you'd say that might be too tall a task. I don't see it. They've gone into Buffalo and won in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They won in Buffalo in the playoffs in a snowstorm, and I think sometimes we forget all the things that he's been able to accomplish. To me, he's kind of if I'm these AFC teams, he might kind of be the boogeyman for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's if he really gets rolling with the people he's got around him, it's a team you don't want to see in January.
When we look at the playoff picture, right, I think we were kind of lulled into that false sense of security for a couple weeks where it was the Colts are going to have the 1 seed. They're unstoppable. Everything's fine. And the Broncos are going to be here and blah, 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 blah. There's a couple teams like the Bengals that are lurking on the outside. I'm not just talking about the AFC picture. Over in the NFC, the Cowboys are just ripping it up. And they had a huge win on Thanksgiving, beating the Kansas City Chiefs 31-28 effectively. I mean, not knocking the Chiefs out of the playoffs, but man, is it going to be hard for them to climb back in now. They have to be nothing short of perfect through the remainder of this. That's a team that now that the defense is settled, now that they're kind of playing a little bit better against the run, this offense is just, I mean, Clayton Adams might get a head coaching job. He's just been unreal as their offensive coordinator. This is a team where I'm oh God, what if they get into the playoffs? I think they're going to cause some problems for people.
Right. And they're because they're explosive. They've got a veteran quarterback who knows what he's doing. The 2 guys they have on the outside, Lamb and Pickens, perfectly complement each other. And they've been able to keep that thing on the tracks, which Pittsburgh wasn't able to do with Pickens. And I've said it a million times. I would not take someone that fell out of favor with Mike Tomlin. I think that's usually a red flag, but it's really worked out for them. And I think you look at what they've done defensively and how they've gone about replacing Micah Parsons, and I think they understood they didn't need to do it with a great edge rusher, right? And so now they've gone from defensive tackle being Osi Odigizua and who knows what else to Odigizua, Kenny Clark, and Quinnen Williams. And now that's a legitimate strength, maybe the best position group on the team outside of receiver. And I will say, I don't think we give Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and Will McClay quite enough credit for how that roster's always been in such good shape. Talent's never an issue there, and you can say they take wild swings sometimes, and that's true. I was on that beat when they took a wild swing at Pac-Man Jones. You know what I mean? So, and Tank Johnson and all those other guys. So they do take wild swings sometimes, and you could put Pickens in that category. But I think back to August and all the and I was part of it, like ripping of the Jones family and everything else there. And like, no one had any trust that they were going to get the roster right after trading Micah Parsons and winding up with those picks. But really, when has the roster ever been a problem there? I mean, it's been over 20 years.
Well, so this is interesting, right? Jerry Jones said that he had offered the Jets Micah Parsons for Quinnen Williams and a pick before the season started.
Right.
And they said no. Do you think that that's true? Do you think that is
my understanding of that was that never even got to the general manager's desk and was just talk between the owners. Now, I think what it does tell you, I think here's the reality of it. Okay, I don't think that was very serious talk at all in the summer, but I think what it does inform you on is it does inform you on what they were trying to do at the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, which was, and what they were thinking at the time, that they really liked Quinnen Williams. And I think you have to look back at Matt Eberflus's past and what was the strength of the Indianapolis defenses that played at a level that helped him get the job in Chicago in the first place. They were really strong at D tackle, right? Like, they traded for DeVoris Buckner and they had Grover Stewart there. And like, that was a team that was able to win, that was able to win up front because they had such overwhelming strength in the middle of the line. And now he has that again. So, like, I think the one thing that it can inform you on, because I don't think it was ever close, none of that. Like, and I think Jerry said it to Gary Myers too, a couple months ago on the radio or whatever in New York. To me, like, what it can tell you is, like, there actually was a coherent plan here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't just like, this isn't all just scattershot BS. Like, they had a plan for how they wanted to reimagine their defense under Matt Eberflus, like when they were discussing what happens if we do have to trade Micah Parsons. And now they've been able to execute that plan, and the defense doesn't look like a weakness anymore. It's again, like, to be able to beat the two Super Bowl teams, and I know neither of them are in the best shape right now, but to be able to win those two games and win them in the fashion they did, where it was like, in both cases, like in the Eagles game, it was a huge deficit at the beginning. They were down 21-0. And then in the Chiefs game, it was like they were able to kind of hold off like a furious Mahomes comeback.
Yeah.
I think it says something about where they're at. And I think Shoddy deserves a lot of credit too. No one wants to give it to him, but
no, I do. I think he's the one that I would give the most credit to. I mean, he's the one that put together that staff. I think Adams was a home run hire. I think sticking with Eberflus and knowing that you were going to get some help on the defensive line, or believing that you were going to get some help on the defensive line, all of that is, and you have to manage all of that in the locker room. And I think that the lineage comes out when what hits the fan. I mean, he's seen a lot of stuff, and I think that nothing is too big for him. I knew that this was going to happen the minute that I started ripping the bejesus out of Dallas for the Micah Parsons trade. And here's the thing. There's been a couple times,
reverse jinx or whatever.
No, it is. It's just me though. And there's been a couple times now where I've had to wear the big horse's ass thing. And I tweeted this yesterday. So, and I want to make it clear on all mediums that I'm a dipshit. Okay. So, we do the magazine predictions. And this year it was me, it was Gil, and it was Matt. And we had to put our heads together, and we had to come up with the season records for every team that are going to get printed in the football preview issue. Right. So Gil does one division, Matt does the other division, and then I come in at the end and I kind of just ombudsman the thing, and I make sure all the numbers line up, and I make sure it makes sense.
So like the overall like winning percentage of the league isn't like 650 or whatever.
Right. You make sure the records add up, and you make sure there's nothing crazy out there. Yeah. Okay. So Gil has the NFC, and he has the Vikings winning 5 games and finishing in like last place. And he has the Carolina Panthers winning the division with 9 wins. And I'm like, guys, we can't do this. We got to stop this. And so I go in there and I bust the whole thing up like an asshole and change it. Lo and behold, the Vikings are going to finish with like 6 wins and the Panthers are going to win the goddamn division with 9 games. Like, I'm never going to like anytime I put my foot down on something, it ends up not in my mouth, but straight somewhere else. And I think that I'll save you the gross visual, but you know what I'm talking about.
You're talking about the guy who has been like entrenched in Camp Mahomes and Camp Kansas City and Camp Andy Reid, and like has been calling everyone a moron who thinks they're going to miss the playoffs. And here I am, and they're 6-6, and I still think like there's a good chance they get in, and if they get in, like is anybody really going to want to play them? But I mean, right now, like they get in, those games aren't going to be played at Arrowhead. You know what I mean? Like I don't, because the reality is this is like the idea of playing home playoff games is a lot simpler than people make it out to be. You win your division, you get home playoff games. You don't, it's really hard to get any. You know, like you need things to happen to get any, because the highest you can be seeded is 5. So after the reseeding, like you would need to play a home playoff game as a wild card. You would have to have the 6 and 7, and I knew I was going to do that before it came out of my mouth, so don't call me on it. The 6 and 7 teams would need to advance. So all 3 wild cards would need to advance for 1 wild card to get a home playoff game. Bottom line, the Chiefs ain't winning that division. You know what I mean? Like I think we can say that safely now. They're 4 games back with 6 games to go, which means the Chiefs are going to have to travel a different road to get to the Super Bowl this year.
The other one here, so Green Bay has not impressed me at any point during the season, really, but they moved to 8-3-1, and the Lions are another team that are kind of just now outside of the picture and having to look back in. And that's why I think Thanksgiving was huge.
Did the Packers wake you up a little on Thanksgiving, though?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I would say that.
Like, I think their defense has been really good.
The defense, I mean, yeah.
And like it might wind up getting Jeff Hafley a head coaching job.
And I will say, I should clarify. They hadn't impressed me, but this performance was an outlier. Like this was a 4 touchdown performance from Jordan Love with like a 125 quarterback rating.
And more than just that, it was like he was making big throws when they needed it most.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You're right. You're right.
Like, and I just thought that there was that nuance to it. Yeah, he only threw for 234, but like they ran the ball well and he made big throw after big throw after big throw. And like when they needed to close the Lions out, they were able to do it. I think you just saw like a different gear from the Packers. And God, is this going to be interesting with them playing the Bears twice in the next 3 weeks? And all the stuff that was said in the off season that I think a certain coach may have filed away, on one side of this. And it's going to be really, really interesting, and they actually play, was it twice in 13 days, right? Because that second one's a Saturday game.
Yeah. So Green Bay, I mean, if you go back and you actually watched that playoff game in Philly, there was a couple self-inflicted wounds in there. There was like a fumbled kickoff. Yep. There was some strange calls. Like, I don't think that they were that far away from the Eagles. Like when we write the story of last season, we're like, oh, the Eagles just kicked everybody's ass on the way to the Super Bowl. That's not necessarily the case. Like
the Packers and Rams both put up a fight.
Packers and Rams both put up a fight. And so this Green Bay team is simply a better version of the one that almost knocked off the eventual Super Bowl champions. And so I think that's why I've kind of held them to an unfairly high standard. And I know it's not fair because there are other teams like Philly that I'll just excuse as being like, okay, well, they're winning games, so why does it matter? I don't know why Green Bay needs to give style points to me. Yeah. I think they just have so many fun players. But Thanksgiving was one of those moments where it turns you on a little bit and you say, okay, this is a massive win against a quality divisional opponent. And you start doing it with a little panache. It's like, okay, let's go.
I think there was also like a little bit of like that lull that they went through in midseason, like losing Tucker Kraft. Like Tucker Kraft was becoming Rob Gronkowski for them. And that sounds like her hyperbole. I don't think it is. Like he was becoming the focal point of their offense, the way the great tight ends are. You know what I mean? Like the way Kelsey in his prime was the was the featured guy in Kansas City, the way Kittle has at times been the featured guy in San Francisco. Like he was becoming that guy for the Packers. So losing him was massive. And it coincided with them losing Josh Jacobs, for a stretch. And I think for a little while there, it was like, okay, like how do we figure out who we are offensively? And I still think like the potential in that receiver room is there. You know what I mean? Like,
there's no doubt.
And like Wicks is a really talented guy. And Christian Watson to me is the one where I look at and like, man, like, if he ever puts it all together, he could legitimately be a number one. And he started to look like that the last couple of weeks. And, they'll get Golden back, and Golden brings a different element. They have so many athletes in that team, I think is the easy way to boil it down. You know what I mean? Like they've got so much like team speed, and I think them against the Bears is going to be dynamite. I can't wait to watch that.
First place in the NFC North on the line.
How about the Bears too?
Yep, let's go there. So Bears beat the Eagles 24-15.
This may have been my favorite stat of the weekend. So the Bears, their Friday game against the Eagles, right? It was one of the 20 best team rushing performances in the history of that franchise, which is 106 seasons old, right? Okay.
It's like Gale Sayers. Yeah.
Right.
Walter
Payton. At one point, it was the best since 1984. Now they got stuffed on a run at the end, and then they had a kneel down. So they got knocked off of that perch and knocked below a performance from earlier in November, which means the two best rushing days they've had since 1984, all right, came in the month of November.
It's amazing.
And that means the 1980 they ran the ball better on those 2 days than the 1985 Bears, who are like one of the preeminent juggernauts of like my lifetime, right? And had Walter Payton. They ran the ball better than those 2 days than the 1985 Bears ever did. I think it's remarkable. You know what I mean? Like what Ben Johnson's been able to do. I think the front office deserves credit for rebuilding the offensive line the way that they have. And the amazing thing about watching the Bears now, you add it to the job Dennis Allen's done with the defense. Caleb Williams isn't even playing that well yet. And
right.
what'll happen if what'll happen if the light comes on for him?
I think it's close to being there, and I think that one of the major...
He's made big throws. Like he's made big throws.
Plays.
He's just not consistent yet.
And it's not like, we can get to this in a second. In Miami, the coach is actively taking the ball out of the quarterback's hands in favor of the run game. Caleb Williams threw 36 passes on Thanksgiving, and Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift had a combined 40 carries for 255 yards. So it's not like Ben's taking the ball out of Caleb's hands for the benefit of the run game. This is all married together, to kind of connect the dots with the conversation that we had about the Bills. And I think that so much of this is due to the fact that they reshaped that offensive line, Albert, and we talked about it, and all three of those guys are still healthy, Dahlman, Jackson, and Joe Thuney. They've played between 97 and 100% of the team snaps. I asked, I'll ask anybody this. When is the last time, Albert, that you remember a team going out there and recreating an entire unit, basically, in free agency?
And they had a rookie at left tackle now.
Right, and having all three of those veterans stay healthy for the entirety of the season. How often does that happen, Albert? It doesn't. And
I mean, it doesn't. Like this feels to me a little bit like. So, and I think that look, Ryan Poles was there in Kansas City when they did it, but this is like a little bit like what the Chiefs did in like completely blowing up their offensive line in 2021 after that game, that Super Bowl against the Bucs, where Patrick Mahomes almost died. And if you remember that off season, they went out and they got Jawan Taylor, they got Joe Thuney, and they drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. And they wound up with, and I think, Donovan Smith came that offseason too, right, from Tampa. So they completely blew the thing up and started over again on the offensive line. And this isn't totally that, but Darnell Wright is the only holdover. And like to me, what's impressive about it, really impressive about it, is you've got a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive line coach, a new system, and almost an entirely new group of players. And it's come together this quickly to the point where, and I'm sure you've talked to people about this as much as I have, Connor, like that group is winning on angles and leverage and like details. And it's like, I don't think people have a full understanding of how hard it is to establish that quickly for an offensive within an offensive line group. And they've done it. You know what I mean? Like, so to be able to do that when you're not throwing the ball that great yet is wildly impressive. And that they did it against the Eagles with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Moro Ojomo and all the guys that they have up front. I mean, crap. Like, I don't know. Again, like, this team becomes scary if Caleb Williams starts playing to his potential.
And it's year 2 for him. Like we do such a bad job, I think, and
with the quarterbacks, yeah. And this is the perfect incubator for him now too, right?
100%. I mean, this kid's going to be. That's a team where now Chicago's had a lot of luck adjusted benefits to this season, right? They win a lot of they win a lot of close games. Yeah, they recover a lot of fumbles. They're good on third down. And good on third down can be coaching, but it can also be like, hey, you're making it to a lot of third downs, right? And that's not good. You don't want to make it to as many third downs, right? But it's one of those things where I think with Ben, it's different because he's such a gifted play caller and he's in such command of this team and in this offense right now that's a team out of all the darlings that have kind of emerged this year as non-traditional powers. That's one that I'm definitely concerned about if I make the playoffs and they get a bye and then Ben Johnson gets a couple days to game plan for me. Yikes. But let's go through the rest of this Sunday slate now because I pulled up the schedule and then now I get the 9 pop-up ads from ESPN that just blast at me to buy insurance and whatever this shit this is.
Yeah. We can do quick takeaways from each of the games if you want.
Yeah, just give me a line here. So 49ers, Browns, Robert Saleh defense has allowed 17 points over the last 2 weeks. I mean, this was a 10-8 game, and then you had Harold Fannin try to do the kind of a version of the tush push. Then there's a fumble, and then it's, as Robert Saleh would say, all gas, no brakes, and it's 26-8. Shedeur looked fine. He's gotten, I think, almost all of the Browns' 30-plus passes this year. He's stretching the field. I think he deserves another shot at this point. Like, why not? He's not embarrassing you out there. You should see what he's got. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for the Niners, though, I think Shedeur, you just find out what you have. I don't think anybody is under the illusion that like he's going to be the answer in 2026. I think the chances are that the Browns quarterback for 2026 is not on the roster right now, but I think you at least, give him some runway to show what he can do. He hasn't looked overwhelmed by it. He hasn't been, outstanding either. But you just look for week over week improvement from him. The Niners are now 9-4. And that's pretty crazy when you think about all the guys they've lost. They started the season without Kittle. They haven't had Ayuk all year. Bosa's out for the year. Warner's out for the year. They play the Tennessee Titans coming out of their bye, which means they're getting to 10 wins, right? Which means they're probably in the playoffs now.
Yeah.
Now their schedule is stiff after that. At Indy, Chicago, Seattle. So, they could wind up 10-7. But I'm prepared to sit here and tell you, this season's already a success for that team. I mean,
no question.
I mean, I like what they've been able to weather and what they're going to come out of this with. And, I really think going into next year now, they've had to lean on a lot of young guys. I don't know. I just look at the Niners as one of those teams. Because they've had to lean on so many young guys because they have their draft picks intact. I think you're looking at the Niners coming out of this year having gained a lot for going through everything they went through, and maybe they're not a huge threat when we get to the playoffs. Although I wouldn't want to play any Shanahan team when you're in the playoffs. But I do think that this has sort of shown the strength of their program overall.
Yeah. All right. The Texans and the Colts, I mean, that was a big one. That was of consequence. This D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke defense is spectacular.
Yep.
I think that Daniel Jones is clearly injured. And we saw with the Giants, Albert, that when you take away his functional mobility, it changes things. And this does it for the Ravens. I'm not just picking on Daniel Jones. This happens for Lamar Jackson too. Okay. Shane Steichen's got a challenge ahead of him right now because teams can now zero in on Jonathan Taylor. 4 yards of carry is still really good. But at the same time, you're not getting the explosives, right? You got a long of 12 in this game, and you got Houston kind of clamping down when the time is right. They're now 7-5. They're a game behind the Colts, and
it's still a very good team. You know, the Colts are still a very good team.
They're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I said before the year that I thought the Texans had the ceiling to break into that tier that we had, the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens tier. I still feel that way. Like and maybe that tier isn't the same as it was, you know, because of what's happened with those three teams. But the defense is otherworldly. Like the defense is capable of winning games on its own. And I think what you're seeing now is like their investment in resetting the offense a little bit is starting to pay off. And that like now their rookies, their first year guys are starting to settle in. Woody Marks didn't have a great day. But if you watch him run, like how explosive he is and like how powerful he runs with power for a smaller guy, like I think they found an answer to like, what do we do about Joe Mixon not being here at tailback?
Yeah.
Jaden Higgins looks to me like a very legitimate number 2 now, opposite Nico Collins and one of the best receivers in his draft class. And Ariante Ursuri at left tackle looks like he's sort of calmed down the fire there. And the offensive line isn't as big an issue. Now you get Stroud back and CJ again, like there was some rust there, but you started to see some high-level CJ throws too.
Right.
So this is one of those teams that I think has a chance to build some momentum offensively. And, you know, again, like their game with the Chiefs next week is going to be super interesting.
Let's move over to the Jaguars and the Titans real quick. I mean, this was, we
probably haven't paid enough attention to the Jaguars.
I don't know. I mean, that like this is hard for me, Albert. Like this is like the Jaguars, the Titans. There's a couple of teams in that boat where I'm just not ready to fall in love yet, you know, because I don't want to get invested and then get into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden this team just gets blown out by the Bills, you know. And I get that that's a faulty. What's up?
I feel that way too. Like their toughest games were in this 3-game stretch, that their biggest wins were in this 3-game stretch where they beat the Texans, Niners, and Chiefs. It sort of feels to me like they got all those teams at the exact right time. Like they got the Niners right after the defensive injury, the big defensive injuries of Bosa and Warner. I don't know if either of those guys played in that game. They beat the Texans when the Texans were still like so young on offense. And then that Chiefs game, give them credit. Like they beat the Chiefs, but like there was a lot going on with the Chiefs at that point too. You know, again, like you give them credit because they won the games. They won the games that were there that and Warner did play in that Niners game for the record. But the wins more recently, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Titans, and the Chargers obviously with their tackle situation. So I still think like Liam Cohen's got them in a great place.
Oh, he's the right head coach. There's no doubt.
As good as their record, I'm still skeptical.
He was the right pick. He did a great job staffing it. I think the arrow is pointing up there. I mean, God, they don't even have Travis Hunter right now, and I think that they're functioning far beyond what.
But again, like you look at their schedule, and the Jets and Titans are still left, which means they probably get to 10 wins.
This the AFC is going to be like it's going to be like the AI bubble. There's just going to be like 25 teams that are like, you know, realistically like 6 teams that everyone's like, whoa, they're awesome. And then push comes to shove and everyone gets punched in the face. And then we see what really happens.
Well, it's crazy. Like I forgot the Jaguars to the extent where I was doing all the math on the Texans and Colts. And I was like, oh, the Texans and Colts both controlled their own destiny. And I was wrong because
nope.
because they're the Jaguars, right? So
I want to give the Panthers their due. So let's just fast forward through a couple more of these. Dolphins and Saints. Dolphins, just look out, baby. Mike McDaniel has basically said, "Hey, Tua, you're handing the ball off 25 times a game now, partner.
Yep.
This is Achan's team. He's had 20-plus carries each of the last 3 weeks. They've fundamentally changed the way that they play offense. Mike McDaniel showed that he can change his stripes. And, God, they're going to be 500, Albert. And, I don't know. Mike McDaniel, we said it a couple weeks ago. If you listen to the show, we said he could hang on to the job. I think he might be able to hang on to the job.
I think I think there's, if the bar is don't lose the locker room, he's certainly cleared that bar.
Absolutely. Jets 27, Falcons 24. Nick Folk, the ageless Nick Folk, banging in this giant, like it was like a 55-yard field goal in a rainstorm. And God.
So before we get to the Jets, where are you at on the Falcons and like the potential for moves there after the season?
So I'm kind of trusting the sense that I've been getting around the league for a couple weeks now, and that's that this whole thing's going to get torn down.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to. I mean, I give Terry Fontenot a lot of credit. I think that the thought process there was interesting. I think he did the job like nobody else could have. But you can't draft that team and then have the offense be that consistently underwhelming and only have one of these guys end up two. I mean, Drake London is certainly a top 10 player in this position too. But you can't have the offense look like this.
I mean,
week in and week out.
I think after what they did at quarterback in 24, it like became wholly about that. You know what I mean? For both Terry and Raheem, like it became about like, okay, like does one of these guys hit? And Cousins lost the job his first year, and Penix really hasn't done a lot to show to us that he's going to be the guy for the next 10 years. And then as the guy who was hurt, which is part of the evaluation, a lot in college, he tears his ACL in his second year, which again, that's not like any coach or front office guy's fault, but it's a tough look when you draft the guy who's got the injury issues and within 2 years, he's got a season ending injury he's dealing with. So,
right.
There's just a lot there. Now, as for the Jets, like this is starting to feel a little bit like Aaron Glenn's got like that Dan Campbell bounce. You know what I mean? Like end of year one in Detroit in 2021 when they started 0-10-1 and finished 3-3.
Nothing would make me happier to see the Jets on solid footing. I don't know if that will happen.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, certainly the fact they haven't collapsed after the trade, and Aaron Glenn looked like a dead man walking a couple weeks ago. Remember when he gave that press conference that was like, I said you'd be proud, but I didn't say it would be this year. And all of a sudden, like I was like, oh boy, this is not working out. But he has held the fort admirably. I give him credit for that.
I do think you gotta give him credit too for like if you just kind of like look at the details of their season. So they beat the Bengals, and that's a big win for them because this is his first win as head coach, first win for the program. Then the guys go away on their bye, and during like that bye week, the trades for Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner happen, right? Or right coming off the bye. And now those guys got to go back in the building, and it's like, can you imagine how deflating that must be? You know what I mean? Like it's like our front office isn't all in on this year with us. And so I mean, look, like the last 4 games since then, they have 2 wins. They beat the Falcons and the Browns. And then against the Patriots and Ravens, those were competitive games. You know what I mean? Like those were not like no shows by the Jets. So I think what you've seen is an ability to keep his team engaged. And like, look, like I think if they're a tough out the rest of the year, that's enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think they will be a tough out the rest of the year.
The Cardinals and Bucks. This is just like I feel really bad for the Cardinals. They are one of those teams that have been in every game. Yep. And just for some reason, the fourth quarter is a psychological mess. And
yep.
but the fourth quarter is the best quarter, and the rest of the game is kind of a mess. And at this point, Tampa's doing what they have to do. I mean, this team is battered. Baker Mayfield is not healthy. They need to survive these games until reinforcements arrive, and I think they did it this week. So,
yeah. I think it's for the Bucs. It's sort of like get to the playoffs in the best shape
get there,
you can. Get Bucky Irving's feet underneath him.
Yep.
We'll see. Like Godwin looks like and has looked like he's, what does he have left? And so I still think like that's one where you're okay. Like he has a little bit of a nice Sunday here as like almost like a compliment to Ibuka. We'll see what they get from Evans. It's still it's still a good team, and obviously Baker showed a lot of guts in just being out there. So I think that they. This is just for them about surviving, beating the Panthers, winning the division, and going into the playoffs in the best shape they possibly can.
The Vikings situation is not good. Seahawks beat them 26-0. I mean, the Vikings defense was all over Sam Darnold. He was sacked 4 times, didn't throw a touchdown, had a QBR of like 18. Okay, but the problem is Max Brosmer had a QBR of 5. Okay, a quarterback rating of 32.8, 4 interceptions.
Yeah,
threw one of the worst interceptions that you've seen all season. And I'm not fading this kid because he's an undrafted free agent
rookie
who gets thrown into the worst situation imaginable. I mean, Seattle is arguably the best defense in the NFL. Mike McDonald is like the McVay of defensive minds.
And it's like tough environment to play in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that game would have gone differently if O'Connell takes the field goal there instead of making Brosmer go for it on 4th down, and then that's when the Ernest Jones interception happened and the game completely changes on a dime there. I can't say that for certain. Maybe it would have been 26-3 instead of 26-0. But at this point, my takeaway from this one, Albert, is that something happened with the Vikings. Either Kwesi, the GM, thought that Kevin O'Connell could make anything work at quarterback and so decided to hand him anything, or Kevin thought that Kevin could make anything work at quarterback and decided to take anything. But it has to be one of those two, Albert, because this depth chart was irresponsibly put together at the quarterback position.
I think the problem is that when you draft a quarterback that high, it becomes impossible to build like real, genuine depth in the room. And here's the reason why. They made a representative offer to Sam Darnold. They made a representative offer to Daniel Jones. Both those offers were competitive with what those guys got in Seattle and Indianapolis. The reason those guys didn't stay wasn't money. The reason those guys didn't stay is because the Vikings had just taken a quarterback 10th overall. And they knew that no matter what, the team's investment was in J.J. McCarthy, not them. And so if they slipped up even a little bit, or if J.J. came along, there were a million different scenarios where, sorry, bud, you're not going to be the quarterback in 2026. Whereas those guys could go into respectively Seattle and Indianapolis. And if they play really well in 2025, it's their show. That did not really exist for those guys in Minnesota,
Right.
And so I think it's just part of the deal. When you draft a quarterback that high, it's really hard to hedge your bets. And that's why you have to be careful about who you take that high, because like for better or worse, you are tethering your job security to the guy, and like you look at the Atlanta situation, it's the same thing. Like when Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris made the decision to not take a defensive player there, whoever that might have been, whoever they might have taken 8th overall, I'd have to look back at the draft. I can remember who it would have been, but I'm looking at it now. I believe that would have been, I think that may have wound up being, I think Dallas Turner or Byron Murphy. Probably would have been one of those two guys, right?
Right.
So when you decide not to do that and you're making another part of your team weaker, and you take a quarterback 8th overall, the level of investment you have in that guy means that sink or swim, you're tied to that guy. And so I think that that's what it is really, is like you take J.J. McCarthy 10th overall, that can't be a flyer. like that's your guy now, and so it winds up costing you the ability to bring a guy like Darnold back, to bring a guy like Jones back, because those guys have better opportunities somewhere else where there isn't a guy who is in that position sitting on the depth chart with them. Anthony Richardson's a different story altogether because the Colts had already kind of given up on him.
God, I mean, that game was, I had that on, and
it was hard to watch. I mean, like, because you know how good O'Connell is, and this isn't really his fault or doing. And the amazing thing is, and like, this is why we invest so much time into the draft every year. It is the way you build a team. You know what I mean? This is why we invested so much in the draft every year. Imagine what this would look like if they were successful in trading up for Drake May.
There's no question. I mean,
they would probably be going to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like,
that's insane.
And they offered a lot for him. They just didn't. They weren't able to get New England to move, which is a credit to New England.
The Raiders Chargers beat the Raiders 31-14. That's literally all you need to know. The Chip Kelly might be the head coach of Kentucky. That's the headline, and I will become a Wildcats fan if that's the case.
Me too.
I want to get to the Broncos and Commanders. Broncos beat the Commanders 27-26, and this game was mind-boggling on so many levels. Good on the Commanders for sticking to it, but the end of this game was atrocious on the officiating front. You had botched holding calls. You had a botched intentional grounding call that Terry McAuliffe came on the broadcast and just said, this is not intentional grounding. You missed the coin toss. You allowed, and this is what's amazing about the NFL. The Commanders knew this, and they took advantage of it. They picked what they were going to do and the direction that they were going to kick, and the officials didn't challenge them on this. You're not allowed to do that, okay? And all of this happens in just a matter of a few minutes. I mean, the PI call, like the whole thing was just, it was a mess. And through all this, Washington just kept coming back and making big plays. And so that was kind of my favorite, where you had an officiating crew that just tried to have a flag party, and the Commanders were like, no, man, we're taking this down to the very last minute. I thought the play call was right at the end of the game to go for 2. I loved every minute of this game. It was a fun one. But to echo Albert, week in and week out, officiating is broken. So broken.
It's broken. And like, I'll say this again. I'm going to sound like a broken record. It's time to take it down to the studs. The NFL's mismanaged this. What they've done, and their mistake, I think, has been adding and adding and adding just without subtracting anything. You know what I mean? Like, in this, they have their base of what their officiating was 25 years ago, and that's still there. And as technologies become available, they've just added and added and added. And as the player safety thing became a bigger deal, they've added and added and added different points of emphasis, and they've changed rules, and they've made this. And again, like, this is with full empathy for the situation the officials are in. It is such a hard game to officiate. On a ground level, if you watch how fast an NFL game moves, it is impossible to make heads or tails of what you're looking at without training your eyes to see things. And so they train their eyes to see things, and then 15 things change on them every year. They've put the officials in an impossible spot. Instead of using technology to make things more efficient, they've used technology to make things more complicated and less efficient. They need to tear the whole thing down to the studs. This would probably take a couple of years to do, but they got to find a way to effectively use the technology to make sure that you're giving the officials every resource to get every call you can right, and to stop worrying about what the value of the competition committee is and making these points of emphasis every year, and stop worrying about what the talk shows are going to be saying on Monday, and just find a way to make this as efficient as possible. They've even screwed up, but the virtual measurement thing is not efficient. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually less efficient, and it doesn't help with the spotting of the ball. It just is something, it feels like a cool toy they're playing with. And I was excited about it, but it just feels like that one takes forever for them to roll out,
It can't take that much longer, Albert, and we had bad PI calls in the Colts-Texans game too that had ripple effects through the end of that one. I mean, we had a potential missed extra point. Like this is shit that puts points on the board. You know what I mean? Like this is consequential stuff, and I can't imagine how hard it would be to have everybody with the TV copy, and if there's a consequential flag, like whatever, quarters 1 through 3, you can make up that, right? The flow of the game, you can adjust, and you can kind of bury a bad call, even if you make a really bad mistake. In the fourth quarter of those games, you need an ombudsman. That officiating crew in Washington was banged up. One of the officials was hurt, had to leave the field, come back. Like you need help. Just take the help. Like all of us are officiating the games better on our couch at home, but just use that technology to help you. That's all it is. Just use technology to help.
Well, and why you can't have someone in the stadium focused on the one game every week? It's just mind-boggling to me. Again, like I'll use the old Bill Belichick line, like it's too expensive. Let's have a bake sale. We can arrange a car wash for them to make the money to pay a few extra officials. Like it's the mere logic, like like just looking at it from like a logical point of view. I don't know like how it makes any sense that like you give the advantage to the public who you're worried about the public criticizing you. You give the public the benefit of all these different angles, everything in crystal clear HD, and you give them these views into what it can look on into like why this official or that official got this call or that call wrong, and you're not giving those officials the benefit of all of that at the best level you possibly can. Makes no sense.
Makes absolutely no sense.
That was a run-on sentence. That is probably part of my fatigue on Monday. I apologize.
This entire podcast is a run-on sentence, but that's good. That's why people have said, many beautiful people have said that everyone loves how Conor just starts talking and then there's no periods or semicolons or anything like that. It's just right to the end. That's the way that the people want it. That's the way that people want the MMQB podcast. We're going to close it out with the Panthers. I promise, Panthers fans, you get your due. I'm sorry that you were abandoned by the Meow Mix podcast that quit at the beginning of the season because they couldn't stand watching Panther games. We're going to make up for it.
Is the Meow Mix back or no?
So the Meow Mix came back like 3 weeks. Like Panthers are like 6-2 since the Meow Mix podcast quit, and now they've kind of creeped back into it. Here's the thing, guys. Sometimes it's hard to be a podcast. You gotta stick through it. But Meow Mix, they took their lumps. I have a lot of respect for Meow Mix. Keep it going, boys. You're doing a great job. Carolina, I wrote this yesterday, Albert, and I want you to argue this with me in the final 5 minutes that we have together on this podcast. I think Dave Canales is coach of the year. It's a crowded field, and I know that you have some thoughts on this.
So Vrabel, Ben Johnson.
Easy schedule. Ben Johnson, a lot of luck adjusted and incredible health on the roster and a lot of help with free agency in the offseason.
Liam Cohen.
Shane Steichen. Okay, the Colts might bottom out here, and the Jaguars might still bottom out here. Okay. So I think that there's a chance, and let's just assume that the Panthers don't.
Peyton,
don't do that.
Mike McDonald.
Okay, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. My take is, and this is not taking anything away from Mike, they went from like the 10th best defense to the 5th best defense. They went from like the 18th best offense to like the 9th best offense. I think this is a coordinator bump for McDonald. Fair?
Yeah.
And to some degree, Steichen's been phenomenal this season. Coordinator bump there. Because you go from Gus Bradley to
you know what, too? Like you look at the totality of it.
That's what I'm saying.
They have wins over the Cowboys, Packers, and Rams. That's pretty good.
That's really good. And Albert, what was their big offensive?
And all those games were close. So they won those games at the end. Yeah.
What was your big offensive addition in free agency?
For them,
Panthers.
for the Panthers. Oh, without
Rico
question, Rico
Dowdle.
Dowdle. Yeah, Rico Dowdle.
1 year, $3 million.
Right.
And now Rico's back to kind of a carry share with Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
But my point here is that nothing about, like, they've gone from the worst defense in the NFL to like the 23rd best defense. They've gone from like the 25th best offense to like the 23rd best offense.
And they run the crap out of the ball.
And they're just figuring out ways to win games. I mean, you pick off in 2 weeks, you pick off a Shanahan offense and a McVay offense 5 times.
Yep.
That's and your best players are Derek Brown and J.C. Horn.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, why is he so low? Like, if you go to MGM, he's like the 10th best odds for Coach of the Year. It's crazy.
Well, I don't think you're going to win Coach of the Year unless you can make it into the playoffs. So maybe that's what it is. It's like, like people still don't think they'll get in, which if they don't win that division, they still have to play the Bucs twice. So if they don't win that division, they probably don't get in the playoffs. I think that's fair, right? But yeah, I mean, no one thought they were going to be 7-6. No one thought they would be 7-6.
Except for, as we said at the beginning of the show, Gilberto Manzano. Great job, Gil. I'll never change one of your predictions again.
Win the division, that's crazy, yeah.
Win the division at 9 games. And the Vikings, he had it all. But with the Rams, this is sort of I can gloss this one over. This is a cross-country road trip. They've been in a couple bangers in a row. Yeah. Matt Stafford sets the touchdown record without a pick, and then just, this happens on every broadcast. It's like a cosmic curse. As soon as you announce it, the wheels fall off. Carolina the Rams still scored 28 points in this game. It's just that
I will say this though. This puts Seattle in position if they can beat them on the 18th on a Thursday night. This puts Seattle in position to win that division. You know what I mean? Like Seattle is in front of the Seahawks now. And I think you could argue, like, just on the eye test, which we can do the old college football eye test here. Seattle's probably looked more impressive week to week. Like, it's close. They may be the two most impressive looking teams in football. But Seattle's, like, I don't think Seattle is far behind the Rams.
No, but the difference is consistency in quarterback play. Right?
Quarterback, which I love Sam, but like Stafford is, notwithstanding the 2 picks and the fumble against the Panthers, still, I mean, like this year on balance might be still I think it's probably the MVP of the league right there with him and Drake May, maybe the 2 at this point.
I agree. Man, that was it's like a Thanksgiving meal in a recap, in a reset.
Had a lot to recap. Had to go back in the memory bank too. 5 days ago is a long time ago.
5 days ago in like a dangerous.
4 days. 4 days ago, yeah.
4 days ago in like a dangerous level of eating too.
Yeah.
Like an unhealthy amount of just like, just kind of passing out midday from overconsumption. And we grind through it for you guys. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We'll be back on Wednesday/Thursday. With our week preview episode, and this is all going to be the snow's falling now. We're going to start getting Saturday games, and we're here, baby. We're in the thick of it, Albert, and I couldn't be happier. I think that the end of the season is going to be bonkers. I think the NFL, we've said it a couple weeks ago, has figured out a way to schedule all this and to stagger all this so all the crazy shit just happens at once. It's going to be like that end of that MLB season like 10 years ago where 5 playoff games were decided in like 13 minutes because of 8 different games. I'm going to get that totally wrong. But I think we're going to have that kind of
Well, that was their focus too, I think, in putting the schedule together was like they didn't want like a Minnesota Rams situation like last year where Minnesota is playing a war in the last game of the season and the Rams are like, basically treating it like a bye week. And the Rams come in and like stuff Minnesota in a locker because they're more well rested. Like I think they wanted to try to avoid that. And, like just like eyeballing some of the contender schedules down the stretch, there are a lot of big games left.
Yeah.
Which is probably why we have some Sundays like this last one, which was not stocked with the most exciting matchups.
But still, like we detailed, very, very consequential. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday because, guys, it doesn't stop. It's going to get even more consequential. We have like 4 games that are going to decide first place.
This is a podcast of consequence.
This is a podcast of goddamn consequence. That's right. Thank you guys for listening as always. And we'll see you later in the week.